pray that God took them quick. And then we saw the people jumping. We thought it was debris, and we realized it was people jumping.
People are falling to their deaths, jumping from the flames in the buildings. Just want to mention, if people do anything, say prayers for the people.
Exitus acta probat. The outcome justifies the deed. The origin of the phrase itself traces back to Niccolo Machiavelli. In the book The Prince, written by Niccolo Machiavelli, he asserts that in politics, the killing of innocents and deceit is necessary in maintaining power as well as controlling the population of a state through deceitful politics. The phrase, the ends justifies the means, or the outcome justifies the deed, would come to identify Machiavelli as a teacher of evil and treachery. Subsequently, the term Machiavellian would be coined to represent evil and deceit, especially in politics and in government. Is it possible that the destruction of the Twin Towers was actually a public proclamation of triumph of a government that was established as far back as the account of Adam and Eve in the book of Genesis in the Bible? What if the bombing of the Twin Towers was actually just a message stating that an evolution of a government that started in the Garden of Eden had finally come to fruition? Okay, folks, in this section, we're just going to do a straight-up talk to each other. I'm going to talk to you, and I'm going to present evidence so you understand that the bombing of the Twin Towers is literally a manifestation that goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden. And once you understand this, and once you've taken hold of this, nothing that's happening in the world today will surprise you or scare you, because you'll understand it. The Bible says you'll know the truth and the truth will set you free. By the way, Jesus is the truth. Okay, so let's talk about Genesis for a second. Let's go all the way back to the beginning of the Bible. And God created Adam and Eve. They were created beings. And they were given certain orders by God that they should not partake, or neither should they touch the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And I want to read something to you. I know most of y'all have probably never heard. I'm going to read to you an account from Genesis 4. It says, "And Adam knew Hava, his wife, who had desired the angel. And she conceived and bare Cain. And she said, I have acquired a man, the angel of the Lord. And she added to bear from her husband Adam, his twin, even Abel." Okay, now let me tell you where that came from. That came from what's called the Targum. Now, the Targum predates the King James Bible. The King James Bible was written after the Targum. So, if you're looking for the exact wordage or verbiage or translation of what happened in the garden, you're doing better to go look at the Targum, because the Targum is what the rabbinical teachers used to teach everybody as they sat down. They read from the Targum in Aramaic. Now, the King James Bible has evolved from that. It's not the other way around. So I want to read to you now the same thing from Genesis 4 in this King James Bible. It says, "And Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived, and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord, and again bare his brother Abel." Okay, so in these very few sentences, it says, once again, "And Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived, and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord, and she again bare his brother Abel." It doesn't say she conceived again. They were twins. Now, when you go to the Targum, and you just go do a little homework, "And Adam knew Hava, his wife, who had desired the angel." Now, this is the serpent we're talking about. "And she conceived and bare Cain, And she said, I have acquired a man, the angel of the Lord. And she added to bear from her husband Adam his twin, even Habel, Habel. Okay, from the very beginning in the garden, there was this twin paradigm, Cain and Abel. Well, Cain killed his brother Abel. It's kind of interesting because the whole system that we're in is cannibalistic. It's the serpent eating its own tail right there. That's called the Ouroboros. And the serpent eating its own tail represents the system that we live in. It literally is vampiric. And when Cain killed Abel, it was a manifestation of the government that was established in the very beginning. One kills the other. And now let me explain to you. That same government exists in every human being. There's a good Jonathan and there's a bad Jonathan. There's a good you and a bad you. You are your own twin. You have this dichotomy that's going on. There's a good you and a bad you. And that's why Christ came, was to rectify the situation. Now, I want everybody to go back to Genesis. It said, now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, so the serpent, which is called the Nakash, and it's called a Nakash because of the hissing sound it makes when it speaks. It's not a snake. It's an upright humanoid fallen angel, or I shouldn't say humanoid. It's an upright fallen angel serpent being that's talking to Eve. And it makes a hissing sound when it speaks. And when it says that he said to the woman, the word for woman is adulteress. Now, we're talking in Genesis 3. So Eve hadn't even been with Adam yet. So by definition, the word adulteress is someone that's had sex outside the covenant of marriage from the partner she has. Well, her partner was Adam. God created them. They were created beings. So she conceived with the serpent, and it says in Genesis, once again, she said, the Lord said, we shall not eat from the tree, neither shall we touch it, lest we die. So a lot of people may have been taught something different, but you haven't been taught the truth. So Eve conceived with the serpent. She also conceived with Adam. There's a type of twin that's called heteropaternal superfecundation, and it's where a woman conceives twins from different fathers.
And one of nature's rarest events confirmed in New Jersey. A woman gave birth to twins, but each child has a different biological father. Before you say, what? Listen up. The evidence was discovered this week in a paternity case. The woman's from Paterson, New Jersey, and is suing one of the men for child support. DNA tests show that he was the father to one baby, but not the other, except a woman conceiving simultaneously from two different men.
So at the very beginning of humanity, Satan's government was established by the intersection of the very first two cells, which was the seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman. And that began this whole government where everybody on planet Earth would be their own worst enemy. They would have a duality of mind. They would do good, they would do bad. They would do right and wrong, light and dark, right side up and upside down. I'm wearing this shirt on purpose. When two cells intersect, they come towards each other and then they intersect. And the intersection of those two cells makes that thing that looks like a football or an all-seeing eye. It's called a Venn diagram. It's also called the all-seeing eye. Now I want you to look at the shirt I'm wearing just briefly. The shirt I'm wearing is called Under Armour. This is the exact same thing as the intersection of those two cells. The very beginning of humanity. The intersection of the first two cells began a race of beings that were twins, Cain and Abel. What's really fascinating is when you put the words together, cannibal. The whole system is cannibalistic. One kills the other. And that's what Satan feeds off. That is his source of energy. That's where Satan gets his energy from souls, because we know by the Bible that Satan prowls around like a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour. And we're devoured from the inside. That's why they built the Twin Towers. The Twin Towers are merely a representation of the seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman. Like the story of the wheat and the weeds growing together in Matthew 13. So Satan built those towers on purpose. Satan used humans as a host body to build those two towers to represent the Garden of Eden, the twins, Cain and Abel, the seed of the serpent, the seed of the woman, the wheat and the weeds. It's all the same. So those towers were purposely built in order to be destroyed, in order to make a public proclamation at the end of the world that Satan has achieved the new host body, because the two were destroyed and in their place a new tower was built. And that tower that was built is called the One World Freedom Tower. And at the very top of that tower, Barack Obama wrote his name, and he wrote, "We remember, we rebuild, we come back stronger." He used the word "we" and then the word "we" and then the word "we" on purpose to show that Satan's government has rebuilt. WWW is 666. So now I've explained to you biblically where this new government comes from. The government that runs the earth. By the way, the word for govern means to rule. And that's what the word govern means. I told you this is the government of Satan. That's why you'll see that very image on the grounds in Washington. It's called the Washington Monument. And in the very center of this is a circle with an X if you look straight down from below, because we have the obelisk in the dead center, which represents the penis of Osiris. And I'm sorry, that's just what it is. I'm not going to be squeamish about talking about what this stuff is. So there it is. You'll see this in Washington, D.C. It's called the Washington Monument. So now we're going to continue this section, and we're going to give you the evidence so you can put this together.
Here we see the account of Genesis 3 in the Bible. The word for serpent is H5175, Nakash. The word originates because of the sound it makes when speaking, a hiss, representing a serpent. Again we see in Genesis 3 that the word for woman is H802. In the definition, we also see adulteress as the first refinement from that Hebrew word. The translation for touch in Genesis 3:3 is naga, which means to lay the hand upon for any purpose, euphemistically, to lie with a woman.
But the serpent said to the woman, "You will not surely die. For God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. And she also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both were opened.
So now I want to talk about Genesis, because we showed you these words. We showed you that the word woman means adulteress in Genesis 3, and that's the translation of the King James Version. We showed you that the word to touch means euphemistically to lie with a woman. So you have adulteress, lie with a woman, and a nakash. Okay, so that's just taking the straight up King James Version of the Bible and going to the concordance and just looking up simply the definitions of the words. So it's very clear and very obvious that this is not just about a piece of fruit. Now, a lot of people want to argue whether or not eat means eat. If you go look up the word eat, it means to consume. There's a variety of definitions even for the word itself.